Good day, my learners. Hopefully, we are still doing well. Mr. Zygot, once again, welcome to our second session of life sciences. Please invite your friends, family, relatives, even your neighbors to come and subscribe on my YouTube channel at Mr. Zygot Tutoring Channel. In this chapter, insofar as human reproduction is concerned, we are going to evolve around the concept that states that all living organisms must reproduce to ensure the survival of their species. So now this is just a figure that shows the full human life cycle process from the process of gametogenesis through meiosis, which we're going to learn in this very own chapter, up until becoming a multicellular diploid adults. Fertilization. Fertilization is a process whereby a haploid sperm cell from the paternal side and a haploid egg cell from the maternal side fuse together to form a diploid zygote. Then it divides by mitosis, which is that zygote, to form a human. That is why all the body cells are being diploid, meaning that they have two sets of each chromosome. Now, for you as a human being to be able to grow to repair damaged tissues, the somatic cells divide by mitosis. That leads into the new cells produced by mitosis being identical to the original cells which were divided. Sexual reproduction is this type of reproduction that humans undergo, which requires two parents. Both the male and the female produce gametes, egg cell and a sperm cell by a reduction division referred to as meiosis through the process of gametogenesis, which we are going to understand when we are furthering or expanding our discussion so far as this chapter is concerned. Then these are just key terminologies in this table, and also we're going to understand them when we are expanding or discussing our chapter in the next slides. We have three ducts which are responsible for carrying urine and other related products to the outside environment insofar as the male reproductive system is concerned. So the first one is the epididymis. The epididymis is a coiled tube on the back of each testicle. Its function it is to store and mature the sperm temporarily. The second one is the van deferens. The van deferens is a tube that carries sperm from the epididymis to the ejaculatory duct, passing through the spermatic cord. The ejaculatory duct is formed by the union of the van deferens and the seminal vesicle ducts as it carries the semen into the urethra. Coming to the urethra now. The urethra is a tube carrying urine and semen outside the body through the penis, as the penis is just an external organ for sexual intercourse and urination. But you get to see the structure of these ducts to the next slide. So now the male consists of three accessory glands. The first one is the prostate gland. The prostate gland is the largest gland in the three accessory male glands. Now its function is to produce a fluid which contains enzymes, nutrients, and citric acid, which can help to activate sperm and neutralize acidity in the female reproductive tract. The seminal vesicle are glands that produce a fluid that is rich in fructose, which provides energy for sperm, and also it can help with sperm motility and uterine contractions. Then now we have the corpus gland. The corpus gland produces a mucus-like fluid that lubricates the urethra and neutralizes any acidic urine residue, ensuring a smooth passage for semen and urine, but then for semen only during ejaculation. Then now these are just the structure of the duct I was talking about in the previous slide, which is the van deferens, the urethra, and also the cord-like tube, which is the epididymis. Coming to the testes. The testes are the oval-shaped glands that are suspended in the scrotum. Now the testes are now containing seminiferous tubules. The seminiferous tubules themselves are lined by germinal epithelium cells which produce sperm cells. Some of the cells produced develop into Sertoli cells, which provides nutrients for the spermatids to become mature sperm cells. The seminiferous tubules are surrounded by connective tissue that contain the cells of Leydig, which is the one that produces testosterone. The testosterone has the following functions. The first one is the development of the male secondary sexual characteristics, like the deepening of the voice, the broadness of the shoulders, the growth of hair on the pubic areas on the face during puberty. But before puberty, there is a hormone responsible for the growth of the body, and that is the somatotrophic hormone that is secreted by the anterior lobe of the hypophysis or the pituitary gland. The secondary function is to stimulate the maturation of sperm cells. Now, it is vital for us to understand that the testes are suspended on the outside of the body, as this allows for temperature regulation to occur. The optimum temperature for sperm production is 2 to 3 degrees Celsius lower than the normal body temperature. If the temperature is now high in the scrotum, it interferes with the quality of the sperm, resulting in male infertility. By having the testes suspended in the scrotum, the temperature of the testes can be adjusted by moving the testes closer to the body in cold conditions and further away from the body during warm conditions. Now, this is just a brief summary of what I was trying to explain on the previous slide. Now, this is a table showing the structure and the function of the male reproductive system, which is the part, the structure, and the function. Now let's come to the female reproductive system. So now the female reproductive system consists of the following. The main female sex organ, which are the ovaries, the ducts, which are the fallopian tubes, the accessory glands, the uterus, and the vagina, the external organ, which is the vulva. Now, the ovaries. The ovaries are found as a pair on the either side of the uterus and are surrounded by germinal epithelium. The function of the ovaries is to produce egg cells and secrete the hormones progesterone and estrogen. But now we'll get to know what is the function of these hormones that are secreted by ovaries when we are in the middle of our session. The fallopian tubes. The fallopian tubes connect the ovaries to the uterus as they are aligned with ciliated columnar epithelium, which helps with the movement of egg cells. The function of the fallopian tube is to transport egg cells from the ovary to the uterus, and also they act as the site of fertilization. The uterus now is a hollow, pear-shaped organ. Now it houses and protects the embryo and fetus during pregnancy. Endometrium. The endometrium is the inner lining of the uterus, as it is the site of implantation and where the placenta forms. The cervix is a lower narrow opening of the uterus as it stretches and opens to allow the baby through during childbirth. The vagina. The vagina is a muscular tube which runs from the cervix to the exterior. The function of the vagina is to now receive the penis and semen during sexual intercourse. Secondly, it acts as a birth canal. Thirdly, it serves as a canal or a passage for menstrual blood. Now, the vulva is the opening of the vagina, which is covered by two vaginal covers called the labia. And also, it protects the entrance to the vagina. Now, this table, which is below, shows the structure and the function of the female reproductive system. Puberty is your body's natural way of physically becoming an adult. It is the period of time when your major organs and body systems mature and your body becomes more capable of sexual reproduction. Now, this is a table that shows the brief summary of the development of both males and females during the period of puberty. Gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is a term used to describe the process by which gametes are produced from the germinal epithelium in the sex organs, and it includes spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Spermatogenesis is a process of sperm formation occurring within the seminiferous tubules of the testis under the influence of testosterone. Now, the process of spermatogenesis involves or includes three main stages. The first one is the spermatocytogenesis, which includes the mitotic and meiotic divisions. The second one is spermiogenesis, which includes the maturation of spermatids into spermatozoa. And now this last one is just the subsequent release of mature sperm. Spermatogenesis takes place as follows. Under the influence of testosterone, the diploid germinal epithelial cells, brackets 2M, lining the seminiferous tubules undergo meiosis. Now, each cell that goes through meiosis produces 4 haploid spermatids, brackets N. Each spermatid now matures to form a haploid sperm cell. Now, figure 3 on the next slide will actually show us how does a sperm cell look like. Let us quickly unpack the structure of the sperm cell. The sperm cell contains the head. Now, the head of the sperm cell contains the nucleus and an acrosome. The nucleus contains the condensed haploid DNA, which is the male's genetic contribution for fertilization. As you know that for fertilization to occur, we need a DNA, which is a haploid DNA from the paternal side, which is from the male side, and a haploid maternal side DNA, which is from the mother's side. Then the acrosome is a cape-like structure covering the head of the sperm cell, which contains enzymes that help the sperm to penetrate the egg's outer layers. The midpiece is covered with mitochondria, which provides the energy, ATP, needed for the tail to be able to move. The tail, which is the flagellum, propels the sperm. Now, the tail of the sperm cell is the longest part of the sperm and moves in a whip-like motion to propel the sperm towards the egg.
Oogenesis is the process by which female gametes or eggs are produced in the ovaries. Oogenesis occurs as follows. The diploid germinal cells of the ovaries go through the process of mitosis, forming numerous follicles. Every 28 days, the follicle-stimulating hormone, which is the FSH, stimulates only one follicle. Only one cell inside that follicle enlarges and goes through the process of meiosis. Out of the 4 haploid cells produced through meiosis, only one cell will survive to form a mature ovum. The other 3 cells from meiosis will degenerate. The structure of an ovum. The ovum contains the nucleus. The nucleus is found at the core of the ovum, containing 3 chromosomes, which are half the genetic material needed for a full set of chromosomes. The jelly coat acts as a protective barrier, preventing multiple sperm from entering the egg. Then the cytoplasm contains essential nutrients, organelles, and maternal resources that support the development of the embryo before implantation and beyond. The follicle cells provide a supportive environment for the oocyte's maturation and production of hormones like estrogen that signals the brain and uterus about development of the follicle.
Let's start the menstrual cycle. These are the terms that you need to get used to insofar as menstrual cycle is. Now, this is just a slide designed specifically for you to be able to understand the pituitary gland, which is the hypophysis, and for you to be able to know that hormones are the chemical messengers produced by glands in the endocrine system that coordinate various functions in the body. The menstrual cycle refers to the changes that occur in the ovaries and uterus of a female over a period of 28 days. This cycle begins at puberty and ends at menopause. The menstrual cycle is made up of 2 separate cycles that happen at the same time, uterine and ovarian cycle.
As we know that menstrual cycle is the combination of the uterine and ovarian cycle. A female can produce 2 ovaries, but will only choose one since only one ovum is produced normally in a single menstrual cycle, but she can produce 2 ovaries during superovulation. We have 4 hormones in menstrual cycle. 2 of them are the reproductive hormones because they are responsible for reproduction, which is the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. Then two of them are the ovarian hormones because they're secreted by the ovaries, progesterone and estrogen. Coming to the interaction of the chemical messengers, the hormones. The pituitary gland secretes follicle hormone, a hormone that stimulates the growth of primary follicle to become a Graafian follicle. As it matures from being a primary follicle to Graafian follicle, it secretes estrogen. Estrogen prepares the body for pregnancy by making the endometrium to be more thick, more vascular, and more glandular. Now we have questions that we need to ask ourselves. What is the purpose of the hormone? What is the hormone itself? Where is the hormone going and where is it from? Meaning that estrogen is from the ovaries using the bloodstream in order to get to the endometrium to prepare the body insofar as pregnancy is concerned by making the endometrium more thick, more vascular, and more glandular. Now, the follicle stimulating hormone does not stop being secreted until a follicle matures and becomes a Graafian follicle. Now, the matured Graafian follicle secretes more estrogen. Now, the levels of high estrogen stimulate the pituitary gland to secrete hormone, which is the luteinizing hormone. Now, luteinizing hormone has two functions, meaning that the luteinizing hormone is secreted by the pituitary gland and it is using the bloodstream to the ovaries to stimulate ovulation, which is the release of an ovum from the ovaries. Normally, it occurs at day 14. As the mature Graafian follicle releases an ovum, it is no longer a Graafian follicle since it's ruptured. It is now a ruptured Graafian follicle. Then the luteinizing hormone converts the ruptured Graafian follicle into a group of cells, the corpus luteum. Since it is no longer a follicle, it will stop releasing an estrogen. It will release progesterone. We must bear in mind that progesterone is there to maintain pregnancy by making the endometrium to remain more thick, more vascular, and more glandular. And also it uses the bloodstream to the endometrium. If fertilization has not occurred, the corpus luteum increases in size. Thus, that leads to the continuation of secretion of progesterone. High levels of progesterone stop the pituitary gland from releasing a follicle-stimulating hormone because there is an ovum in the fallopian tubes waiting for fertilization to occur. But then if fertilization did not occur, then the corpus luteum will decrease in size and eventually degenerate. The levels of progesterone will decrease, and low levels of progesterone will now lead to the stimulation of pituitary gland to release follicle-stimulating hormone. Then the cycle goes on and on and on and again. Now we're explaining the hormonal control of menstrual cycle using this diagram below. As you know that follicle-stimulating hormone is produced, its function is to stimulate the growth of follicles, and now those follicles produce estrogen, and estrogen prepares the endometrium by making it to be more thicker, more vascular, and more glandular, and so far as pregnancy is concerned. So now if fertilization did not occur, the blood in the endometrium will shed in a form of blood clot, and that process is called menstruation from day 1 to day 7. If there is day 0 there, but from day 0, day 1 to day 7, from day 0 to day 7, or at the beginning of the line to day 7, the menstruation occurs. Now after menstruation, estrogen will make the endometrium to be more thicker, more vascular, and more glandular, meaning that estrogen increases the thickness of the endometrium. After that, on day 14, ovulation occurs. Now, once ovulation occurs, estrogen drops, and also that means that luteinizing hormone converts the Graafian follicle into corpus luteum. Corpus luteum will secrete progesterone for pregnancy by making the endometrium to remain more thick, more vascular, and more glandular. Then corpus luteum will degenerate now if pregnancy did not occur. Then progesterone will decrease. Then endometrium will be no longer thicker, more vascular, and more glandular. Then there won't be any implantation. Then now the examiner might ask that,
is the female pregnant or not, insofar as this diagram is concerned? And you will say no, because since the levels of progesterone end up being low or decreasing, since it is there to maintain pregnancy, that means once the level of progesterone becomes low, there is no pregnancy to be maintained. Therefore, the female is not pregnant. Now coming to the fertilization and the development of the fetus. Now, in the ovary, a mature Graafian follicle bursts usually on day 14 of the menstrual cycle and releases an egg cell. This process is called ovulation. Fertilization takes place high up in the fallopian tube. The egg cell, which is haploid containing 23 chromosomes, and the haploid sperm cell containing 23 chromosomes, fuse together to form a diploid zygote containing 46 chromosomes. The zygote divides by mitosis to form a morula, then a blastocyst, then finally an embryo as it moves down the fallopian tube. It takes about 5 to 7 days for the embryo to reach the uterus. In the uterus, the embryo settles on the endometrium and sinks into it, embedding itself into the endometrium. This process is called implantation. After implantation, the embryo produces many finger-like structures called villi from the outer membrane of the embryo, which is known as the chorion. The villi grow into the tissue of the uterus to form a placenta. The placenta is attached to the embryo of the umbilical cord. It has two umbilical arteries which carry deoxygenated blood from the embryo towards the placenta, and one umbilical vein which carries oxygenated blood from the placenta to the embryo. The embryo is enclosed in a fluid-filled sac called the amnion. The fluid itself is called the amniotic fluid. About 8 weeks, the embryo develops structures such as limbs and all other organs of the body. Now, it is no longer called an embryo but a fetus. Gestation is the period between fertilization and the birth of a baby. It usually lasts for 9 months, which is 39 to 40 weeks. The stages involved in natural birth of processes are dilation of the cervix, which is labor, explosion of the fetus, and the delivery of the afterbirth, which is placenta, extra embryonic membranes. Now coming to the fertilization and the development of the fetus. Now, in the ovary, a mature Graafian follicle bursts usually on day 14 of the menstrual cycle and releases an egg cell. This process is called ovulation. Fertilization takes place high up in the fallopian tube. The egg cell, which is haploid containing 23 chromosomes, and the haploid sperm cell containing 23 chromosomes, fuse together to form a diploid zygote containing 46 chromosomes. The zygote divides by mitosis to form a morula, then a blastocyst, then finally an embryo as it moves down the fallopian tube. It takes about 5 to 7 days for the embryo to reach the uterus. In the uterus, the embryo settles on the endometrium and sinks into it, embedding itself into the endometrium. This process is called implantation. After implantation, the embryo produces many finger-like structures called villi from the outer membrane of the embryo, which is known as the chorion. The villi grow into the tissue of the uterus to form a placenta. The placenta is attached to the embryo of the umbilical cord. It has two umbilical arteries which carry deoxygenated blood from the embryo towards the placenta, and one umbilical vein which carries oxygenated blood from the placenta to the embryo. The embryo is enclosed in a fluid-filled sac called the amnion. The fluid itself is called the amniotic fluid. About 8 weeks, the embryo develops structures such as limbs and all other organs of the body. Now, it is no longer called an embryo but a fetus. Gestation is the period between fertilization and the birth of a baby. It usually lasts for 9 months, which is 39 to 40 weeks. The stages involved in natural birth of processes are dilation of the cervix, which is labor, explosion of the fetus, and the delivery of the afterbirth, which is placenta, extra embryonic membranes. That is it from Mr. Zygote. Should we have any inquiry, send it to the comment section. Remember, it is better to die for an idea that will live than to live for an idea that will die. Have a good day.